Hi everyone, Anthony Fantano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review, the new Burial EP, Truant, Rough Sleeper. Burial is an electronic music producer, a dubstep and future garage innovator who's pretty much been taking it easy on the whole releasing a full-length album thing since putting out the genre-defining Untrue in 2008. The number of artists he's influenced since this LP came out is damn near incalculable, especially with all the Bandcamp and SoundCloud copycats out there. His music is very influential in the underground, but he himself is kind of elusive, only occasionally releasing an EP worth of material here and there. 2 to 3 songs, but I wouldn't necessarily say it's to hold fans over. This is just kind of the pace that he seems to be working at right now, because the tracks, the material that he's putting on these EPs, it's far from being throwaway. These releases have actually been a pretty vital and interesting part of his progression past Untrue. The last EP that he put out, Kindred, was my second favorite EP of this entire year. And on this EP, he was getting really ambitious with ambient sounds and textures, song lengths, and he's pretty much going down that same road again with this new release with 2 tracks, just 2 tracks, but both of them span easily past 10 minutes. This EP stylistically is kind of like a sequel to Kindred, but that doesn't mean what's happening here isn't done really well, and it does have a few experimental surprises. There are all these watery synth chords on this track that have kind of an eerie resolution to them. There are some very finely chopped female vocal samples echoing over that, as well as a very subtly pulsating 2-step beat, which goes through these really quiet and subtle changes. I fell in love with you. Along with those vocal cuts, there are glitches in here, just shots of subterranean bass, and some chimes too. And as the song moves along, there are like some sudden stops that kind of bring the song to a halt. At the 1:30 mark, the song kind of glitches out and everything disappears for a moment before the track boomerangs back with that vocal cut that I just sang. At 3:50, the song stops again. Silence, but then it comes back quickly once more with a beat that is way more tribal and has kind of like this fluttering quality to it that's really strange. At 5:16, another full stop, and after that it feels like I'm listening to the same song, but there is a notable change in it. All these stops in this track, it's kind of a very interesting use of silence to kind of bring the song from one point to another. But the 8:30 mark kind of brings this song into its last movement. It stops, starts again, but it feels like an entirely different track. At this point, the song has a minor key bass line, and it has a different kind of momentum to it. It's crawling, it's lurching, it has kind of like a, I don't know, I guess I would say a reptilian quality to it. It's not as pretty as the previous spots at all. It's actually pretty hectic and noisy for Burial. It's so clunky and I think kind of otherworldly. Just the sharp drums and these murky alien bass hums, it's definitely my favorite of the 2 tracks, and I think a step up for Burial when it comes to bringing together a really unique sound palette. The song Rough Sleeper though gets started right away, hits a nice pace. I love the effect that these synth chords have. It's kind of skippy, and the sound of the chords has a bit of a church organ feel to it. A sexy saxophone sample comes in, and I'm noticing that in this track, there are full stops as well. There are gaps, there are pauses, and at a few points in this song, they occur at the same points in the previous song. And of course, as the song stops and comes back in, it introduces newer ideas like these icy synth chords that pop in occasionally. At this point, I'm feeling like these stops are even more interesting. It's actually a really nice way to make these 2 tracks feel more like not just 2 tracks, but an entire cohesive piece, like they're connected in some kind of weird abstract way that I feel like us as the listeners can't really fully understand, but we can kind of draw some conclusions, come up with our own interpretations. There are these really weirdly harmonized vocal cuts that kind of pop up throughout the track that I wasn't really too hot on, was pretty kind of lukewarm on that, how they sort of felt dissonant against each other. But I loved the metallic arpeggios bouncing all over the track, and this song comes to a pretty noisy and strange and kind of clunky end as well. I mean, Burial really makes a case for noisiness and distortion on these two tracks, especially at the end where they come to an apocalyptic close. Though still, I would say overall these songs are pretty quiet and subtle, understated like you would expect from Burial. Overall, I really enjoyed these two tracks. I didn't love it quite as much as Kindred, but I thought that these two songs were a worthy sequel for sure. I'm feeling a light to decent 8 on Truant, Rough Sleeper, but if you've given them a listen, what did you think? Did you love it? Hate it? Why? And what should I review next? Anthony Fantano, Burial, Forever.